Hamilton and the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, May 30th, 2024. Our first order of business will be to approval of the minutes from our last meeting, April the 11th, 2024. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Our next order on the agenda is for public comments. Do we have anyone that would, from the public, that would like to speak today? This is something that we added to the agenda here recently, that we give opportunity for any citizen to come forward and speak, and we are limited to 3 minutes. But seeing that we have none today, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is the update on stadium documents. And Jermaine?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jermaine Freeman from the City of Chattanooga. So what we wanted to use today to do is to really sort of paint a picture of all of the outstanding legal documents that you all will need to review and take action on in the coming weeks as we sort of get to the finish line here. And so we invited Mark Mamentov, our bond counsel, to come in and to walk you through all of these agreements. You are not being asked to vote on any agreements today. This is just a time for us to share and to give you, to sort of paint a picture of the documents that are outstanding. And these are documents that will come before this body within the next several weeks as we continue to make progress. The biggest document, and probably the one that's most significant right at this current moment in time, is a development and financing agreement. We feel like we have reached a good, solid agreement that we will also share with both the Chattanooga City Council and the Hamilton County Commission within the next coming weeks, and so they will also have a chance to review that as well. But there are a number of other documents in addition to the development and financing agreement that are under the purview of this body that Mark will walk you through now. So, Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I'll invite Mark Mamentov to come up to walk you through those. We have also provided each of you a list of the documents, so each of you should have a list of at your seating spot up at the dais. Thank you, Mark.
Good morning. As always, it's great to be here. Mark Mamentov. I'm again a bond lawyer, one of the world's most boring professions. But, the development agreement, you must wonder, we come here and then everybody's excited, we're ready to go. The development agreement is what's kept us working for the last couple of months. It was a harder document to do than I expected, but we had clear instructions from City Council and County Commission that if they were going to approve the amendments to the Economic Impact Plan to provide for the new financing structure that we went over with you guys at our last meeting, that they wanted to see a meaningful development timeline and commitment for the wheel and foundry side and the U.S. pipe side. It's not been really very contentious. Everybody's been great to work with. Andy has been very forthcoming and good to work with from the site owner side, and the team's been great. And Corey and Jermaine obviously is very positive. So it's not like it's been particularly contentious. It's just been very hard because it's a big site, and their timing is not exactly the same timing as the stadium. And so we really had to work through those issues. And so we expect to be able to send out a draft of that agreement to you all at the same time that we send it out for City Council and County Commission to have a discussion next week. So look for that document, because I think you'll find it interesting, number one, but number two is, and I'm going to go through some of the key terms so that you can be prepared. But that's sort of my second bullet point. Just going to go again over sort of the key project documents. Remember, you all will be the owner of the stadium. And so you're going to lease the stadium to the team. I've done a draft of the lease. Jason Fryer had commented on it, and has given some good comments, and I am in the process of responding to them. I think we should have a draft to be able to share with you all soon. It's, I don't want to say it's standard. That one is, but it is the terms of that lease, the financial terms, the actual term of that lease have not changed, and I think we're making, good progress. There always are some nuances, but I think that will be between you all and the Lookouts, the legal names. Or Chattanooga Professional Baseball LLC or something like that. Yes, thank you. Hardball Capital is the operating manager. And then a document we've talked about a little bit before is the stadium property transfer agreement. This is the agreement from Andy's, and I use Andy sort of as my placeholder, the family that owns the property around the stadium will agree to donate the stadium site. And so that is the agreement that will do it. And we have a draft of that. It has evolved quite a bit because it's had a sort of interrelated with the development agreement. So you will see a draft of that document soon. We have a draft from that I generated that their lawyer has marked up and sent back to us. And then we've talked about parking a lot. So there'll be a master parking agreement between this body, the team, and again, the site owner. And the reason this is particularly important is we need over 2,000 parking spaces around the stadium. And so this will be the agreement along with an accompanying easement that will provide for those spaces. Keep in mind, and we've talked about this, I believe, is that those spaces will initially be right next to the stadium, but we all believe that this site's going to blossom and grow and is going to have all kind of parking around it. They'll have structured parking garages fairly quickly. So the parking arrangements and the parking locations will evolve as the site, because you want the site not to just be a open parking lot. You want it to be evolved. So this agreement will address how that will happen over time, and we do working on a draft of that. I mentioned the development agreement, and we're going to come back to that. And then we'll have an infrastructure agreement. We need some road work done and some utility work done, and Bill can answer any questions about if you want some more precise information about what they'll be. But it's basically a ring road to service the stadium and some utility work and a better access road leading into the stadium. And that's roughly a $10 million cost that you will want as the owner of the stadium to see that it's done. And so the current thinking is that because the site owner developer will be on site doing work, that it would make sense and will be most cost efficient, and they're willing to take on the risk of any cost overruns, is to essentially hire them to do that as they're doing other site development work, so that it'll be done when the stadium would open in 2026. That agreement has not yet been, even a draft of that one yet. The stadium site development agreement, I know there's a lot of development agreement, seems like there's a lot. This is the agreement that basically says once they donate the property, the site owner will agree to essentially prepare the pad, so it'll be pad ready. They will do this in a manner consistent with the brownfield agreement that's already been entered into to protect not only the current owner, but you all from brownfield issues. Phil and I have been working on this. The city has their own environmental council, and obviously we're working through to make sure that we feel like you all are protected as the owner of the stadium. But it was a very good brownfield agreement. I think both our council as well as their council spent a lot of time, and the state has been extremely collaborative from my experience. They really understand Chattanooga and your history. I've been really surprised how cooperative they want to be to see that this is successful. And I think this agreement sort of addresses the nexus to the brownfield agreement, and basically the site would be pad ready for Bill then to run with it and break ground. So that cost is roughly the $10 million cost that the tax increment financing note that the site owner will do. And when I use the word site owner, I'm using the term, right now it's Perimeter and Pipe Properties are the two names that we know. There's going to be another entity. Andy, remind me again, it's Foundry
Master Developers.
Foundry Master Developer. They're doing some planning and things like that. It's going to try to have it all in one entity. So you'll see that name again. I got used to Perimeter and Pipe, and now they threw another one at us, but it makes sense, Foundry Master Developer. And so, and then on the other side is also New City, which is an entity that they have hired, and you've heard a lot about Jim Irwin and New City, and they've hired them to be the master developer to take the property down and actually develop. You know, they're not really in the development business, they're in the site ownership and sale business. And I had the pleasure recently of going to see the work that Jim and them have been doing at the Newhoff site in Nashville, and got a tour of that, and it was really amazing what they're doing there, and I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do here. And then then there's the construction documents. We've been doing them incrementally. Bill's largely been running with that with both the contractor and the design firm. And basically he's waiting for us to have money through our bond issue so that he can do the rest. They get the final guaranteed maximum price. They've been pricing all along to make sure we're in the quote ballpark, and we'll be ready to go when we're ready to go with the financing. The brownfield agreement, as I mentioned, is already signed, sealed, and delivered, and that was an important step. So I'm going to turn to the development agreement because that's probably the most important thing that we've been working on so hard. And just to, both, as I said, both the city and the county legislative bodies expressed us like, we don't want to build a stadium and have nothing around it. They have a real incentive, obviously, just as a business matter to see that it's developed. But, we really wanted to make sure that something would be coming out of the ground. And that's what we've been working so hard to finance, not to finance, but to finalize. And so these are the high points of what that agreement's going to say, basically, is that New City, which is the master developer, an affiliate, will take down the first piece of property that basically surrounds the stadium. There's an L-shaped parcel that I've called the Phase 1 parcel that essentially surrounds the stadium to the right. On that parcel, Jim anticipates doing essentially an office building and some apartments as a first step. Because of our delays in negotiations and pricing and things like that, that project is not going to be coming out of the ground exactly at the same time at the stadium. But Jim, showing his real commitment to this project, is willing, when we close the bond issue, will buy that property. And that's not an inconsequential commitment. It's an over $5 million commitment. And Jim is not related to Andy, I don't think family-wise either, I think. So I'm joking, but yeah. So, this is he's bringing in his own sources and we'll be buying. Then we'll have milestones in the agreement where he agrees to finish the schematics, the design drawings, the construction drawings, and to get permitting. And so that's all outlined in the thing. We certainly expect probably within the year, that he would be breaking ground on these projects. Now, what was so hard about negotiating this agreement is obviously interest rates could go crazy again, something, odd could happen, but right now that would be the expectation that those beautiful buildings that you've all seen some site drawings on would be the initial phase of New City's development, would be certainly being built contemporaneously with the stadium, but not starting at the same time that we would be doing with the stadium. And it shows a very material commitment on New City's part, which I know we're all excited about their creative approach to rehabilitative development. And then there's a general commitment as to development that they will use their commercially reasonable efforts to develop the entire U.S. pipe, wheel, and foundry site. I mean, that is a meaningful commitment, but it's, what is commercially reasonable efforts? And that, that admittedly is not like, oh gosh, by this date you'll do this, by this, that. And we've obviously spent a lot of time fine tuning that language, but we feel like we've come up with something that's reasonable to both sides. And on top of that, we do have very specific milestones that they would meet in terms of development, measured based on either acreage developed or actual square footage constructed. And along with the commitment from Jim to go in and buy the land and get to work on Phase 1, this is probably the other most meaningful commitment. I know that I get a lot of questions about what about clawbacks and things like that. This is not like a pilot, a tax abatement deal where if you don't create a certain number of jobs, you're gonna have a clawback. This is all integrated in a big financing, and this is a public asset, the stadium. It's not like a pilot, and so it's quite different. But in many ways, this is the quote, penalty if they don't develop the site. So what you'll see in this document is basically, and this took us a long time to come up with the math and a compromise, but basically what we really didn't want to see, the input I got from the city and the county was, look, Broad Street's going to develop. There's already quite a bit of development along Broad Street. But we want them to develop the U.S. pipe, wheel and foundry site, not, I hate to say, piggyback off of Broad Street development that would happen anyway. So you'll see a fairly complicated formula that says they have to meet these targets on developing the U.S. wheel and foundry site. If they don't meet these targets, then they can't essentially piggyback off the other development that's not on the, and we all, I think, would recognize that just by having the stadium there, which is something that largely is somewhat, due to the symbiotic relationship we have, but it is we don't want the stadium to, even if Broad Street is developed into the coolest thing in the world, we want the property around the stadium to be developed as well. So there's going to be a real monetary incentive for them to meet certain development thresholds. And if they don't meet them, it would affect their payment source on the $10 million TIF that the site owner would did. And that is a very concrete goal, a very enforceable goal, no matter what. And so that is really what's taken us so long to try to reach an agreement on what that would mean. So you see my little bullet point. So if they've not met these targets, they will not get the benefit of essentially the revenues from the other part of that's not on the U.S. Until they meet those thresholds. So there'll be a delay, and if they never meet their thresholds, they would not get the benefit of that. So it's in my judgment, it was a reasonable compromise and a strong commitment on their part to indicate that they would meet these development goals. There's also a purchase option. The worst, again, would be if the stadium ends up out there and nothing's around it. And if they default and don't meet these goals, one of our remedies would be to purchase the property on either side of the stadium. And they're big parcels. I mean, we're not, and so this would give the public essentially the opportunity to go in and say, look, we like you guys, but you're not getting it done. We're going to go in and buy these and do it. And we can buy at a significant discount off market value so that there's an ability to be able to turn around and then remarket it. So that's essentially another meaningful compromise thing that we've negotiated. So you'll get this agreement for all my yapping. It's only about a 10-page agreement, excluding all the property descriptions and stuff. But I just want to give you all an overview when you get it, because it gives you sort of an explanation what it will be. And that agreement, when y'all next meet, is what we would hope to present to you all and get your all's approval that you're satisfied with the form of that, because we'll be doing the same thing with the city and the county and asking them to approve the economic impact plans.
Mark, since I represent both the Industrial Development Board and this body on here, which entities will be involved in, or will they be involved in both agreements here in that regard? Because we're talking about tax increment financing, which is going to be issued by the Industrial Development Board and not by this body.
That's a great question. And if you don't mind, I'm going to jump ahead to that bullet point. So there's two tax increment financings, as y'all may recall. There's $16 million the team is doing, and there's the $10 million. So those tax increment financings will be, you'll put on your IDB lawyer hat and take off your sports story lawyer hat. And so we'll have, the IDB will be doing those two tax increment financings. They will be essentially cross-defaulted, and that's not even the right word, but they will be integrated, but they will be separate. There will be references in those tax increment financings to this development agreement. And so they will be integrated. But this agreement, this development agreement that I've just been taking all your time about, is between the Sports Authority, because this agreement is primarily intended to protect the Sports Authority, their bonds, in terms of making sure that we create the revenue source to pay the bonds, but even more importantly, to encourage development around the stadium so that you don't end up building a stadium in an isolated brownfield site with no development around it. So that this specific agreement, the IDB is not a party to, but it certainly will be referenced in the IDB TIF documents.
Okay.
Then, as I've told you all several times, is we're going to hit you with the financing documents soon as well, now that we feel like we've crossed some fairly hard hurdles. There will be a trust indenture again, that's the big one. That's like 100 pages long, and it's mostly legal gibberish, but we'll certainly walk you all through that and get that to you as soon as we have a good draft that is almost done that we can start circulating based on the current structure that we have. There'll be an official statement, which is in my bond world, this is the document that you go out and sell bonds with. Just like the city has an official statement or the county has an official statement when they sell bonds, this body would have an official statement that is what's sent to underwriters, and they say, oh, this is great, I love it, we'll buy these bonds. We have interlocal agreements. We've already been in front of you all, but the key ones are the one from the city and the county essentially agreeing to make up shortfalls on the $80 million of bonds. So, and that one is done, but then there'll be another interlocal agreement for the $5 million of bonds that that the cities agreed to support using primarily hotel motel taxes to also back the tax increment revenues. And so that agreement will be coming to you all. And then there'll be a bond purchase agreement, which will be actually drafted by the Underwriters Council, which is the document in which the Sports Authority would agree to sell the bonds. And so I know that we're going to ask you all to meet more than you probably want, but there'll probably be a meeting when we really get close to the thing where we walk you all through all the financing documents, make sure we get them to you all well ahead of time and make sure we answer all your questions. My bullet point about documents to which you all are not a party goes to Phil's question about the IDB. The IDB will be over here doing this tax increment financing to bridge the $26 million that we went through in our prior meetings of the financing that will be made up through TIFs being bought by the tax increment financing being bought by the site owner and by the team. And so we'll be doing that contemporaneously and getting that board together. And I'm so sorry, the last two bullet points were a carryover from something else. I was cleaning this up late last night because Jermaine, I started to do a PowerPoint, I'm sorry, and I said, you know what, this would probably be an easier way to do it, so I apologize that I had some carryover. That's the overview. I know that you're like, well, wait a minute, what am I going to vote on? We thought it just would be helpful to give you all an update. Why have you not been moving this thing? And hopefully this overview of the development agreement, because again, you all will see that next week, and I'm sure it'll be in the press and things like that. And we wanted to give you all an overview first of what it's going to look like. So glad to answer questions. Jermaine, did you have anything to add? Wait a minute. You usually sit over here, and he lost me thing, so.
No, the only thing that I would add is that for the $10 million ring road that will be constructed around the stadium, the city, through its normal budgetary process, is planning to sort of create the first round of funding for that and to allocate that or to appropriate it to the Sports Authority pending City Council approval to sort of be the down payment on the $10 million ring road. So that's all that I wanted to add.
I know one thing you had asked me, and I'm sorry I forgot, is the community. Many of you have asked from time to time about a community benefits agreement. Again, just to remind folks, a community benefits agreement, many people have learned that term because there was one done for the Nashville Soccer Stadium. It's the only one really that's been done in Tennessee. It's done with the neighborhood groups that surround the fairgrounds in Nashville. And but none of the governmentally entities are a party to that agreement. In fact, Metro Council and the Sports Authority there didn't even have that agreement to vote because there's issues in that agreement that are really not governmental issues. These are issues intended to protect the neighborhood and support the neighborhood that surrounds the stadium. As you all saw in the press, Caleb decided not to proceed with negotiating that, but my understanding is great progress has been made between the Bethlehem Center, which is a local nonprofit that does work in the South Broad area, and the team and the site owner, and I think they're very close to reaching agreement. And my understanding is that it addresses many of the issues in terms of local hiring issues and DBE type issues that. Because of legal constraints, particularly as to local hiring, really this body can't require. I know it sounds crazy, but governmental entities generally cannot require local hiring, except in the most, I think because of the federal, essentially the Commerce Clause that says, look, this dude's from Knoxville, you can't discriminate against me because I happen to be 100 miles north of here. And I know that seems weird. You should be able to hire people from your local community, but generally governmental entities can't do that. And so this is actually a better way to do it. I know many of you will want to know that, that they have been attentive to the neighborhood and that some agreements have been reached. And I think we'll be able to report to you all before that you're asked to approve a bond financing that's been consummated. Is that a fair summary? So, anyway, anything to add on that? Okay. I think that's it. Any questions, concerns?
Mark, when should we expect these documents to start coming?
Yeah.
'Cause it seems like there's a bunch of documents that we have to review.
Yes.
And I know in our last meeting, they stated that they would start in 10 days from our last meeting.
Yes.
Here's a month and a half later. And
Yes.
we still hadn't received any. Could you give us a
Yeah,
real tentative timeline?
You should blame the lawyers, and I think, and we deserve it. I mean, it's just harder. You will see the development agreement early next week. I mean, if not over the weekend. So that's a key document. I would say that of the top documents, I would think you will start seeing them next week. The stadium lease has to be approved by MLB, Major League Baseball, so I don't know whether Jason's will want to send that to them before we make it public to make sure they're okay with it. So that's going to be an important one. And the reason I'm sort of hedging right at the moment is that I want to be very respectful. We've had a great relationship working with Kirby Yost at Chambliss, who is Andy's counsel on this, and she's going out of town for her husband's 50th birthday for a well-deserved vacation next week. And so I don't know whether I'll be able to, she and I were negotiating all these top documents. They're close, except for the infrastructure agreement to share. I just don't know whether next week with her out of town, whether we'll get that out, all of them out next week. But we're certainly, I don't see, I certainly, I know we didn't intend to mislead anyone. It just was, the development agreement was just a whole lot harder than we expected. And I would like to get you all a trust indenture to start looking at. I do think I can send that to you next week, and just so you have a better understanding of what the bond financing is about. So it's going to go through numerous iterations, but I do think it's an important document that you'll want to see. So I know that wasn't a clear answer, but the development agreement is the one thing I can promise you that you'll have to.
Okay. Does the board member have any questions for Mark? Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
The next step on our agenda is a discussion when our annual meeting should be in section 4.1 of the bylaws. Thank Maria for giving us a copy of it. And Phil, I thank you. Date on that.
Yeah, in your bylaws that you have, we at least established that you have to have an annual meeting to be determined by the board. So y'all basically set your time for that. And at that annual meeting, you elect officers and conduct any other business that's going on. Y'all obviously have been having many more than just annual meetings here with this board to this point, because you're trying to deal with the aspect of, what do we do on ownership of land? What do we do on the aspect of issuing bonds? And y'all have never issued bonds before, so I imagine we're going to be getting into that a little bit more heavily here as we get closer and get some documents. But you do need to set a time for when you're going to have your annual meeting, and so probably ought to move for a time to do that here in this meeting, and then at that point elect your officers for the coming year.
Okay. I think at this point, since we're just now seeing the document, that we will probably take this up at
Your next
possibly the
meeting.
next meeting.
Sure.
Give everybody time enough to look it through to set a date.
No problem.
Okay.
Yes,
Could we
sir.
possibly do an email poll to suggest some dates, or should we?
Yes.
Just, get with Maria on timing on there as to the dates that you might want to do, but we can definitely do that coming up. And just want to make sure that that's not on something that will be too heavy for you if you're getting deluged with documents at the same meeting here to approve.
Yeah, it'd be just great to get as many people
Yes,
as we can here.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Phil. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Thank
That's
you.
all we got on that.
Next order of business is other business. Jermaine, I know Mark mentioned about the community benefits agreement. where are we at with that and who's heading that up? And, because at the last meeting, I had, several, contractors, potential contractors, approach me and they were trying to get some information on that.
Sure.
And they wanted to know the contact person, if they could be a part of this agreement and where are we at as
Yeah.
far as the community benefits agreement.
So the primary organization that is negotiating with perimeter properties in the Chattanooga Lookouts is the Bethlehem Center. So the Bethlehem Center is the representative and working with the South Chattanooga Community Association. So they will really be the legal entity that they are negotiating with. And again, as Mark said, just as a reminder, the Sports Authority and the city and the county won't be a party to the community benefits agreement. That agreement will largely just be between the neighborhoods, the Bethlehem Center, perimeter properties, and the lookouts. But they are working, they have had several conversations at this point and are making great progress. And so I anticipate that within, by the end of this week, there will be, what we could do is make sure that posted on the South Broad website, which was the website that was created for the entire project, there will be information for people who are interested in contracting opportunities to be able to reach out to someone who is listed on that website. And then people can just reach out directly to that individual.
Okay, and the contact person, with the BEF is who?
Well, so we're in the process of making sure that we've got all of that worked out behind the scenes in terms of bringing on a consultant to help us with that. And so once we've got all of those documents signed, then we can announce that on the South Broad website, and then people can reach out. In the meantime, if folks are interested in contracting opportunities, they can always reach out to me, and they can always reach out to Bill Payne, our chief engineer, and we can make sure to get them connected to EMJ, who is the construction manager at risk.
Okay, and I know we also discussed in the past about, the city hiring someone to work with the new contractors, potential
Yeah.
contractors.
Sure, so
Where are we at?
yes, so recently, the city has been working on a great program called the Builders Blueprint Program. We have had some folks in the community who have been great to work with. The Builders Blueprint Program, just to give everyone a little background, is a program that takes individuals who are subcontractors now, who are interested in becoming prime contractors or general contractors, and it takes them through a program for several weeks to help them get trained up to be general contractors. And so we anticipate that we will continue to work with some of the community partners who were involved in that effort to also work with those same community partners to steer potential subcontractors to this project.
Okay, and do any of the board members have any, questions for Jermaine?
I don't have any questions regarding this topic, but if I can go back to the annual meeting topic?
Yes.
Okay. First question, and I hope I shouldn't already know this, is there a fiscal year for this organization, for the Sports Authority?
The charter, at least at this point in time, establishes, I believe, that y'all are an annual group, but we normally file a report with the state on a fiscal year meeting basis as well. So it says regular meetings and special meetings shall be held on such dates as the board shall designate, so it does not give us a specific deadline for that, but I definitely think we normally need to file a report with the state of Tennessee on any money that you have passing by here before July 1st.
And the reason I ask is
Yes.
if this has a year, an annual, if whether it's July 1 or December or
Yes.
January, and then that would sort of drive my suggestion for the annual meeting. So
And we
is
just,
it, are we saying this calendar?
we've just said the officers shall be elected annually by the board on here. We are operated as a nonprofit corporation on that end of it here, and our charter, at least as to when we would file reports, is normally July 1st.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
But if we don't have any bonds issued before then, that makes it a little simpler too. Yes.
Thanks, that's it.
And, Jermaine, I have one more question.
Sure.
As far as the city and county, the council and the commission and the whole agreement, did we ever finalize it?
Yes, so that's the agreement that Mark was referring to. The development agreement is the agreement that we feel like we've now gotten to sort of the finish line on. What the city council and county commission had expressed an interest in is being able to see the development agreement as they take their final votes to approve changes to the economic impact plan. And so we anticipate that we will have the development agreement to make available to the city council and the county commission as they requested, so that they can be able to reference that document before they take their final votes. But we would like to see those final votes take place within the next couple of weeks, and so that way we can keep moving and making progress.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And are there any more questions for anyone from the board? If not, the meeting is adjourned.